Good morning, everyone. Before we jump into what I'm sure will be a wild session, I just want to direct your attention to the risk disclaimer at the bottom of the stream. Trading futures is risky. It's not suitable for everyone. Um, this stream is actually 10 to 15 seconds behind live, so whatever you're watching happen on screen is not real time. So um, manage your own risk. Nothing on this stream is considered anything other than educational. So with all of that out of the way, the NASDAQ is opening down here just a little bit, I think just about 2% down. We basically just sold off all night long. There was like a couple of small attempts at bounces and then kind of a puke here around 3 a.m. before they spent the rest of the morning kind of rallying this back up to 28,800. There's this imbalance level that showed up right before that bounce down here at 28,591-ish. And then we got some exhaustion from the buyers as they got back up here. So the NASDAQ is down quite a bit. Semis and AI stocks are pretty far down this morning. That's where most of the pressure seems to be coming from. Also, the Korean stock market overnight was down about 6 or 7%. That has been something that the NASDAQ this in the last couple weeks or so, as that volatility has picked up, that we've seen pressure coming in to U.S. markets as it seems to be becoming a bit more of a well-known fact that Korean investors have been incredibly bullish on tech stocks and using leverage to buy them. And so as things have started to pull back a little bit, that has increased selling pressure. And the NASDAQ is kind of already been pulling back and getting rejected at highs. So let's take a look at the higher time frame. The red line is just the current price, so that's not anything in terms of support. We finally broke out of this horrible chop range. We rejected the same price. Let me zoom in here just a little bit. So this is 3 rejections here right above 30,000. We've talked about on the stream before that I like to think about things as kind of like a, knock on a door type, try to get through a certain price. And usually a third try gets you through there. There's no like rule or line in the sand. Price is going to do whatever it wants. But generally speaking, support tends to hold a couple times, and then the third try at least gets through a little bit. But sellers stepped in at that exact same price. And when we didn't get through yesterday, we just cut all the way through value. We bounced once. And then once the overnight session kicked in, Globex traders just kind of had a field day selling this down. So I expect very high volatility this morning. I mean, the overnight range is not quite 1,000 points, but almost. I think it's like 800 points from the Globex high. So I expect volatility to be quite high in terms of areas of support. So we have broken out of the last week or so of consolidate, or the last month or so of consolidation. These are weekly profiles. We're sitting back in the week of June 8th. There are some lows down here from that week around 28,250, but that's another like 300 points from price right now. That would put the NASDAQ down around 800 to 1,000 points off the top of my head. This little pivot here, which I thought we would probably get sell through at some point. My hope was whenever we closed yesterday, closed what was a very choppy RTH session. My hope was that we bounced a little bit overnight and then we were able to short it down to here. But the overnight crew took care of that on their own. So if we get a rally looking back up into, basically right around 29,000 would be kind of the first area if we start to get a large bounce that we could potentially find resistance again and roll back over. I think the one danger for sellers, although they are firmly in control right now as they make another new low, um, is that there's a ton of volume. We know that this range lasted for quite some time. So if price happened to get up to 29,000, or a little bit higher, the chance that this starts to become sort of an area that is a magnet is something to watch, but we are very far away from that right now. We're almost 500 points away from that 29,000 level, and we're making new lows. So on a continued pullback, I would say that these lows become in danger of getting taken out, and that's around 28,271. I have a little bit of, I would say, a bearish bias, although we're down quite far without very much of a bounce. So I think, per usual, I'll watch the 30-minute opening range get set, and kind of see what price does from there, because it's it's not uncommon for when we're down this much at the start of a session to see kind of like, the people that are either trapped in options or anything else and seeing some more selling pressure come in right off the open and then get some kind of a rally, at least temporary. But I can't say anything but the sellers are in control to me. Um, so this would be the first area that I would kind of look at. This is near, not quite up to that 29,000 level, but from a delta perspective, this is where sellers defended last night, which is around 28,810. But once again, these are all things that are very far from price right now, and we are clearly going down in the opposite direction. So it's going to be a very fast, probably pretty violent session in terms of price action. So um, if you trade multiple contracts, I would recommend sizing down and widening your stop. Obviously, manage your own risk, but these are the type of environments where price can move very, very quickly. Um, and we started to see some of that yesterday. Um, I was unfortunate enough to have traded in this area yesterday. Um, did a little bit worse than break even, but nothing terrible. But it was mostly just a really frustrating set of price action to change. Just like every down move and every up move looked kind of equally convincing. It was just very, very violent. It wasn't super liquid, so price was able to move quite fast. Um, and it was really hard to manage risk in there from a perspective of like I kept getting, 20 or 30 points in profit, moving stop to break even, getting stopped and then reversing. And then it was just really, really choppy. So just aware of that again this morning that as we start to sell off, rallies become very convincing looking and everybody wants to be buying the dip. But right now, sellers are in the driver's seat, so any pop I would be looking at fading as we lose 28,500 there with what looks like a big sell area right there. Yeah, there's a sell imbalance right there at the low. Um, Also, we recorded on Wednesday, and our audio did not process through YouTube. So if you guys are watching and you can hear me, let me know in the chat just to make sure that I don't do another hour and a half stream. I know a lot of people watch on mute if you're working or something, but I got to that recording and I was like, oh, we were missing a very important element for screen recording here. So I can see my audio showing up in my screen recording software, my streaming software, but if it's not making it to YouTube, please let me know. Throw it in the chat. So we're not even 10 minutes in to RTH, and we have done a 200 point opening range. Volatility is going to be exceptionally high. If we take a look at the depth of market, where price is at right now, we can see it moving around quite a bit. I actually just saw a big seller chasing right there. You're getting some sell imbalances starting to stack up down here. There's a little bit of weakness on that attempted break to go lower, but uh, until price says otherwise, I think it's going to be a fade the rally kind of situation. If there's any type of pop, there's some exhaustion there from sellers. All right, so let's zoom in just a little bit here and get like a little bit of the lay of the land. So we got a little bit of exhaustion down here. I also have my exhaustion. I've been experimenting with my exhaustion settings in Delta Flow, just a little bit different. I have bars before exhaustion set to 5 and bars before signal set to 0. So if you are using Delta Flow on the NASDAQ right now with the default settings, your exhaustion signals might look different than mine do on screen. Um, I'm always kind of experimenting with different settings, and we'll always communicate those to you guys if I find that some combination in the current environment is working better. Um, Also, if you're using our impact study, I think I mentioned this on the Wednesday stream, but you wouldn't have been able to hear me, um, is we made some updates to our impact study. Um, there was one bug that we fixed that was basically making it so that like as imbalances got stronger throughout a session, they kind of increased their baseline for what was strong. And so that was making it so that later in the session, it was harder for those imbalance levels to show up. So the current version of the imbalance study is actually showing like the ones that you guys are using if you're using ScalperIQ, is actually showing even more extreme levels of imbalances. So you can actually trust them more if they're on their chart. It looks like a bug. It's not. It's a bug in that it's not showing exactly what it is like every level, but the levels that you're seeing are really strong levels. So we've made updates to that so that the number of levels you see on the chart are more likely to match up with actual imbalances that you see on the depth of market, like this -66 or -36, depending on how thinly or we're trading. Um, so, and we've also given the ability to change how many separate out basically RTH levels as well as ETH levels, because obviously the volume and the amount of sort of imbalances you can find in the overnight session is very different than RTH. So we've separated those out into their own individual sessions, and you can control how many levels you see from each session, whether it be Globex or RTH. So we've done that, and we've also done the same for Phantom as well. So those updates, this is our last day of observation. So whenever we make updates, we tend to observe them in live markets for about a week to make sure that, nothing breaks, everything behaves in a way that makes sense before releasing it out to you guys. So that release should, as long as nothing messes up today, um, that release should come out over the weekend and be ready for Monday. So we had some temporary exhaustion there. As I kind of mentioned as I got on here, it was just a very, very, very small rally that got faded already, and we're already making new lows. So, we're only now about 200 points, 130 points off from these lows here. And I think that looks like where sellers want to send this. I would prefer, if I'm going to be trying to take a trade to short this, that we don't get there before the opening range is set. But buyers are going to have to do a little bit of work to try and hold this up for about 14 or 15 more minutes. I also want to check. I didn't look this morning to see whether there's any 9 a.m. Central data. So let me make sure that we're not gonna have. I mean, the 9 a.m. rollover will be violent anyway. Yeah, so we have Michigan consumer sentiment right at 9 a.m., which is I don't know how much it's going to matter in the current uh, environment, but there will definitely be algorithms that react off of that. So what is already a violent environment will become even more violent at uh, 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. So just be aware if you happen to already be in position or you're looking to take a position, just put that on your radar. Um, I have been caught in that before where either happen to be in position, forget there's a data drop at 9 a.m., um, or take a position right beforehand. So always good to just sort of check, see what's out there. Um, we're already moving violently, so I don't know that that's really going to change anything. It might just make it worse. And retesting this imbalance level here. It's at 28,468 from the underside now. Pushed past it a little bit. See if sellers can reoffer it. It's too early in the session for me personally to be taking a position there, but that's kind of what it looks like when you get up to one of these levels. And so the way I do it, which is actually going to be actually a little bit trickier today just because price is so rangy. So let's say that I wanted to short this level, which would have been a great trade so far. But let's say I want to short this level. So for me, I scroll my DOM to around the area that I want to be looking for an entry. So this 468, which they're already back up to. And then what I watch is like, are we going up off the DOM? Are we getting super far away? Are we getting above this level? Are we holding above it? Do sellers show up? There's a 10 contracts being sold right there. They just touched it and refilled it. Price is trying to get back up above. So like this is what I mean when I'm talking about like is a level starting to hold, So now we're holding above it and now you're pushing up off the DOM, and so now I would leave it alone. Um, if I wanted to short it, I would want to see it come all the way back across my depth of market, all the way down, and then come back up and not be able to get back above 68. Now, when you're trading the NASDAQ, especially in this current environment, obviously it's going to be moving, one, quite quickly, and two, um, hold is a very relative term. 5 to 10 points, even 8 to 10, 15 points above the level that you're looking at is not going to be out of the question. So they're now testing another imbalance, which is right here at 28,500. You can actually see it on the delta volume on the depth of market. And they're above this level right now. So now someone is bidding right at it. You have 30 contracts on the NASDAQ trying to buy at that level. Um, the next imbalance there's a buy imbalance up here at 28,564. All right, so now they've just reoffered this level, reoffered for a moment, but now holding back above. So this is a little bit of you're never going to necessarily find the exact right moment, but we're talking about like looking for specific behaviors. Um, the depth of market is very organic. And obviously in this current environment, it's extremely fast. So what you're looking for is like little flits of price, like price getting from say 500 to like 505 and it's there, and then it's back below 500, and then it's at 505 and it's back below 500. And at some point, you just have to say, I'm going to take a shot at this. Um, so, oh yay, somebody can hear me on stream. Thank you. Um, so like right now, I would say that 28,500 is holding. You're going to need a stop that's like probably almost 20 to 30 points to make sure that you don't get wicked out in volatility. Um, but this is kind of reoffering this level here. Yeah, so if this wasn't pre-opening range, I would already be short right now at 28,500. My stop would be about 28, 520. Um, and what I would be looking for as a first target as is this imbalance level down here at 28, the 68 level that we looked at before price popped. And looks like I would probably take a stop. Yes, I would have. That's why I don't trade pre-opening range. Um, and when I say opening range, if you haven't watched the stream, I trade the 30-minute opening range. And when I say I trade the opening range, I mostly mean that I'm not really an opening range like breakout trader. I just use them as points of reference for like what the market has done or is doing for the first 30 minutes of the session to kind of guide um, some of my bias. Obviously, the whole overnight session and higher time frame guides that, but I use the opening range to gauge, what is our level of volatility. Um, are we making new lows in RTH? Um, and they're just points of reference to be like, well, here's the high that we made in RTH. Here's the low we made in RTH. Right now, we're headed back up to the middle of that. And like, if you're gonna trade based on what you see on the depth of market, or really just like when you're trading off of a level in general, especially in this environment, it's not uncommon for me and for a lot of people to get stopped out trying that a couple times. Your job is, manage risk. Like if we think that this is just going to be a fadeable rally, and we would get down near the lows, which is like, call it 100 points away from where price from 28,500, and you're risking 20 points, or maybe your stop could have been tighter in 15. You're risking like 4 to 1, 5 to 1. So you can get away with trying that a couple of times. The thing to be really cautious about, in my opinion, is like you don't want to take every single pop that like gets below 500, or long everything that gets above 500. Like you need to have distinct, either whether it's rules about number of holds, or sometimes it's just kind of a feeling, which I know people that are new hate to hear. um, this is now testing this imbalance level, which I think is right from the open. Yeah. So right here at like uh 28,565-ish. So we'll watch another one to see whether buyers are going to push through it, or whether we get a reoffer. I always like to kind of think about like, I'll have levels on my chart that I'm interested in looking at, but what I want to see is like, does anybody else see it, right? Does anybody else with size and the ability to move the market around see it and care that it's there? Because nobody cares about where lines are at on my chart. Um, so you need to make sure that the market, it's like, sure, it's a buy imbalance that we're coming up and testing from the underside. We're looking at now testing another imbalance here um, from the underside, which is probably this 28,590 level. You see the sell imbalance here. Um, but like the market is moved by large participants. It's not moved by retail usually, at least not in the futures market. So you want to make sure that the level that you're looking at, that people with a lot more money than you also care about your level. Um, Pretty decent rally here off the lows. You're looking at like 200 points right there off the low. Um, Getting a nice long wick on the hourly candle. The one thing that we haven't been able to see yet, because price has not really pulled back off of this low, is do buyers step in on a pullback, or is this just short covering from the overnight session? Still kind of looking at this imbalance here at 28,590. We still have data dropping here in 5 minutes. Um, put that on your radar. The next imbalance on my chart is from Globex again. Nope, I'm sorry, that's from near the open, 8:30. That's the thing about using fixed volume charts, which is a 500 fixed volume chart, is time is, I don't want to say it's random, but like bars are not created based on the clock rolling over. So you end up like, oh, we did that much volume at the open, so we did that many bars. We're that far away from where RTH opened. So the next buy and balance is close to, call it 28,670-ish to the upside. Um, Another thing that you can kind of use as a, I don't know, I use it as a general kind of rule of thumb, is like looking at a similar sized rally from the overnight. So like this rotation up from the overnight was, call it 28,550 to 28,830. So like just short of like a 300 point rally, around 3 a.m. Central Time. Right now we're at 408 to 627. So we're like 250. So we're not quite this level of rotation up. So buyers might still have a little bit more in the tank. Um, Not everything is perfectly symmetrical, and that's not necessarily trading advice. But a lot of times, rotations, if you think about a trend line, right? If you have a trend line drawn down, particularly like if you think about drawing a bull flag, so it would have like a line drawn on the top and a line drawn on the bottom. And in a perfect flag, you're going to actually be symmetrical, right? Your rotations are going to be symmetrical. There might be some wiggles in between, but like your general rotations, that's what makes ultimately something hold a trend line. So if you're kind of measuring rotations, and you don't feel like drawing a trend line, or maybe it's so messy like it is right now that you can't really draw a trend line, um, pick whatever the normal size rotations are. If you were doing that in the overnight session, for example, right? So like this one here is 28, call it 29,000. 29,000 to 29,100. So like about a 100 point rotation. And then this is 28,900 back to 29,000. That's another 100 point rotation. This one got smaller. This one's just a tiny bit smaller. Then you puked, and then you had the bigger one. And then this one here is probably back to one of the smaller rotations. So really not necessarily predictive in terms of like, I would not say, oh, we'll just put your offer out 100 points if you think that's what the rotation is going to be. But it can kind of help you judge volatility, or if you're like looking to fade something, as I'm thinking about fading this rally, and think about where are we at in the context of how much price is rotated in one direction or another. Buyer's just relentless right now, though. They're coming up to this next imbalance level. They just tagged it. One thing to keep in mind if you are watching the stream and um, you happen to be quite bearish, um, a couple things to give pause. One, the S&P is off of its high by like 2.5% as of this morning. The NASDAQ is not even 10% off of its high. I think maybe from the low right here, it was about 10% off the high, but where it's at right now, I think it's like 7%, 7 or 8% off of the high. So, in the bigger picture of things, even though, uh, AI stocks, a lot of tech stocks, semi stocks, um, look pretty brutal this morning. Um, a lot of those are up quite a bit, and there's a lot of potential, like sort of like excess and froth to come off of those names. But doesn't mean that like the whole market is, in an impending crash. Um, Now, that's not to say that we're just gonna like, you know, continually rally and take back the whole move today, but it's important to sort of keep that larger context. That's going to be the Michigan data drop there right at 9 a.m. Michigan consumer sentiment. I don't actually look at the numbers, but the algorithms will react to it, and that's going to technically be an opening range high breakout as well. They got the RTH high. So basically put in a low at about 8:45, and then for the last 15 minutes we've seen nothing but buying. The point of control for the whole session is up at 28,750. It's about 40 points away from where price is right now. And there's a sell imbalance popping up just below the point of control. We'll also say this is one of my favorite things about ScalperIQ is just simply the candle coloring. So if you happen to get long at this aggressive flip down here, enjoy your retirement. But we haven't had a single candle color change. Let me zoom in a little bit. So it's just straight buying. So there's a little bit of exhaustion there from buyers, but they got this so far off the low. This is where things can start to get a little bit tricky because that was enough buying that I'm convinced that buyers are present and accounted for. But right now the rally is only, I would say, only a little bit bigger than the one from the overnight, which makes sense. I mean, RTH is going to have more volume and more volatility. But they are pushing hard. This zone here from the overnight is also sitting right around the midline for the whole session. It's like 28,815. If I was long, that would be kind of like my next target. I'd probably sell before these tops or sell before we got into these zones. ES has an excess low. Somebody who's short at the lows is having a bad time. And I think I mentioned it already, but I think the Korean stock market was down another 7% last night. So that could have been what a lot of this was. And looks like so far, at least, that RTH is not interested in the same direction as the Globex traders were. All right, I'm going to scoot my depth of market up here. I'm going to look at around the midline. That would be getting slightly through this delta zone from the overnight. We're also getting close to the edge of value up there. They actually just barely tickled the bottom of that zone, and now they're back to the point of control. So that's almost a 400-point rally off the lows. If I can't possibly say it any more times, please manage your risk. It is moving incredibly fast. It's totally okay to size down in this environment. It's also okay to not touch it. To be quite honest with you, on some of these days, if I wasn't streaming, I wouldn't necessarily be touching it. It's just not it's not the easy environment to make money in. They're holding this imbalance level here. See if they can actually hold it. It's like 730. Need to get it back above it. And they're back above that now. Wow. See if they can come back and touch this level again. So right around 730. If I was going to get long, it would be a 20-point stop. But they may go ahead and just push it too far before I really want to get into that. If I were to get long here, I would be looking at getting up into this zone or touching session mid. So that's about just like an 80-ish point trade, but they may get there without me. All right, let me look at the session mid. You can see some sellers stacked here around 28,800. They're testing that right now. And that's going to be the session mid. I'm not going to step in front of this. I need sellers to, if there's anybody left to want to be selling, I need sellers to start to defend a particular area and defend it a few times, or happy to miss a short trade. But sellers still with the edge on the overall session, but buyers firmly in control of RTH right now. All right, they're kind of starting to hold in this delta zone here. Kind of. All right. It's a little pop and re-offer there. They literally just almost tagged the session mid with that little pop. All right, sellers finally finding some kind of place here. This has a pretty good chance of getting stopped, but 20-point stop on it. Let's see if they hold the top edge of this zone one more time. I'd be looking back to the point of control and then move stop to break even. Only risking 20 points, so I think we're just a little overcooked here. All right, we're filled at 807. Very aware that this might not work. All right, stopped there. Willing to try again if they can get it back below the session mid, but buyer's pretty intent on taking this higher right now. This is above these tops now. So two places that the Globex and actually a third place right here where they just popped above. This is a pretty wild rally off the bell though, to be honest with you. They gave you like one little look on a pullback to potentially get long at this imbalance level, but not a second look. Nice little, good old V-shaped recovery. I personally find these incredibly difficult to trade. I know at least one person in here who I chat with pretty regularly knows that I don't trade Vs very well. So you guys get to observe me trading Vs. You can give me notes later. All right, so that's just outside of value if we're looking in terms of just the total session right now. Let's look at the higher time frame. So there's this low here that we took out in the overnight, sitting around 28, call it just over 28,900, 28,920. There's like a little bit of a volume node there, but it's pretty flat. it's pretty flat. Like buyers definitely or sellers definitely don't want this to go too much higher in my opinion because there's just not a lot of structure from the overnight session. They're back to this area. Probably more likely they try to hold it as support than trying to short this here. And there's a buy in balance that showed up just below the mid. You're seeing them push there. It's just barely starting to get some noticeable selling pressure there. See if they can hold the underside of this buy imbalance right here. They're trying. I wanted them to give me one more look at that price, which they might here in just a second. All right, basically same trade again. It's moving so fast. See if I can see 75. Or I might just come back to my entry there. Yikes. And stopped. Had profit for, I think I was like 25 points in the money there for just a second. Held the bottom of that zone. Was looking for just a little bit more of a push. We got a nice little push down off of that imbalance level, but just some wild buying right now. Just a couple of small losers for me. Make new highs there. So we're coming into this level here, right around 28,900. I don't really see anything yet from, there's not really anything there from the overnight session in terms of a delta perspective. So get a little bit of weakness on that particular push there, but something to pay attention to. But buyers have a lot of momentum coming off the lows right now. So we've tried to fade it twice, hasn't worked. This is one thing that I do particularly like. I mean, it can be argued to not use small stops in this kind of environment, but for me, you know, we didn't get filled here at 75, but you know, I had basically covered my first loss had we gotten filled there, plus some profit. So I have to trust my analysis enough to know that if I take 2 or 3 stops, that you know I'm not digging myself a ginormous P&L hole. But you can see that the you know the bicolor for these candles has stayed pretty much the whole time. I think you started to get just a little bit of sell pressure, like just starting to roll over into this zone, but you know, you're kind of trading in open air here. You probably have single prints from overnight from moving down through this so quickly. Um, so honestly, like all I really care about is like, please don't go back into the, please don't go back into the chop zone. Can we please trade in a new range for the same for a little while? I'm so tired of seeing the same prices on my depth of market. The biggest pullback we've had from this rally is 28,860. Not even 100 points, basically like 60 to 80 points on pullbacks here. So building out some volume up here, and they've also shifted value up with them. So definitely constructive things for buyers. Just every kind of little pullback is just getting violently bought right now. I'm probably wrong, but I'm really not that interested in a long trade. I feel that we're starting to get towards what might be the upper end of this rally. Obviously, could be totally wrong, um, but I think the risk to reward was obviously much better. I think down here near when we broke the opening range high, but it was a little early for me to take a position. So instead, I've been fading a couple spots, which hasn't worked. There's another buy imbalance there. Starting to stack a few of those. If I am going to get long, I just need more of a pullback than these like 40 or 50 points. Um, so sellers kind of starting to slow them down here above 850. And I say kind of. Nice. I see some of you taking off options down here on calls. Nice work. Starting to see the candle coloring just ever so slightly starting to dim from the buy side, drifting back towards neutral, not really a sell color. Um, but I mean, sellers basically came out and they dumped stuff for the first 10 or 15 minutes, but now they've pretty much just had this box explode in their face. They're above the midpoint for the session, or at least they're trading above the midpoint of the session right now. Um, they don't want to give back too much more, in my opinion. There's just thin, almost no structure from the overnight. Buyers have already done half the work, taken back half the selling from the overnight. And as I said just a few minutes ago, I'm really not good at catching V's. I need some type of mean reversion that's happening for me to try to get into position. And if it's just going to go vertical, which is basically what this is, you got one pullback here into this zone. But if it's just going to go vertical, it'll go vertical without me. And I'll attempt to scalp something really small. So you kind of have to know what sessions you're good at trading, what sessions you aren't good at trading. Um, these are not the type of sessions that I personally am good at trading. So having awareness for that taking small stops and small probes at potential larger risk to reward makes sense. Um, and if it's not your day, don't press. Either don't trade, and if you are going to trade, don't press. So like if it's a day that you're really good at and you're really seeing everything and it's like price is doing what you want, like if we had already come in to this session and put in a lower high and started to roll back over, that's kind of what I wanted to see from sellers. And it would have aligned with my bias. So I would have been more inclined to be aggressive there. But um, I wasn't looking for, a 500-point rally off the low and get above the mid for the session. So now I have to kind of sit and recalibrate and see what it is that I'm going to do. Also, I haven't been watching because it drives me crazy to watch my own like webcam setup on another monitor. But I did code um, a P&L panel that you can see off to the right, and it should be active whenever I'm taking position. Um, I could have just captured a window from MotiveWave, but MotiveWave doesn't have any way that I've been able to find. If somebody else has found it, let me know. But to show my P&L in points instead of dollars. Um, and I just psychologically, I don't think it's a good idea to watch your P&L. I think if you're gonna watch your P&L, watch it in points and not in dollars. I think our brains are just like so hardwired to seeing dollars that like the chance of making rash decisions or ending up trading your P&L is a thing. That is one thing that I like about NinjaTrader, is you can actually see your points on the screen. Um, and MotiveWave is just all dollars. I think there's a column that you can put up that's points, but it really doesn't look very nice. It bothers my aesthetics. So I coded my own custom thing. I haven't been able to watch to see whether that's functioning when I took my 2 quick trades this morning, but if anybody else is watching and sees the P&L going live over there, let me know. Coming back to test another imbalance here at 8:30. We know that there's another one down here at like 8:15-ish, so there's a couple that sellers would need to get through. So a couple different places for them to defend. And the best that sellers have done so far is kind of slow them down. That's about it. Have a little bit of like, I'm going to call it barely a triple top, but it's just triple top on the, a 500 volume chart. So it probably doesn't look that way on like a 5-minute chart or anything like that. A little bit of a pullback here. This is the first bit of, we have enough sell volume accumulated to roll over the candle color from the lows. So if you happen to buy this pivot and this break above this zone down here, if you were long at 28,500 and you held it until the candle color shifted, congratulations on your 325-point winner. Seller's just not getting anywhere. Just not getting anywhere at all. And this is the thing is like, we know that both the Nasdaq and the S&P are not that far off their all-time highs. So this is not we're below the 200-day moving average. This is not 20% market crash, like, you know, people that might have bought semiconductors or other AI stocks a little bit late, um, they might be feeling some pressure, but overall the market is not not cratering. So to have it open up quite low off the open, just like straight selling overnight, um, it's not terribly surprising to watch buyers step in. Really would have preferred if they could have taken out some of these lows down here. Um, I think that just would have made things cleaner, but market doesn't care what I want. They held this in balance here at like 8:15. Seller's going to give it a little bit of work here. Back into this level that we shorted twice. This time, sellers with a bit more control. Not holding it super well though. There's a little bit more of a pullback. I want to take a closer look at what this hourly chart looks like zoomed in. Super long wick on the 8 a.m. hourly, and um, popped over this pivot high. And that's where we're finding a little bit of resistance here. That would be this pivot high from the overnight. Back up to this imbalance level again. Sellers just with like not very much juice right now. Gonna test it again. Little push down off of it. I saw somebody live streaming the other day. I was like poking around looking at some other live streams just to be like, you know, How are people showing their P&L? Are people showing their P&L? Just like what's the lay of the land? Um, and found some where people were like playing video games like during their stream, and I was like, okay. Don't think that that's going to be something I do, but sure. You guys want to watch me play Candy Crush instead of trade the market? Just say the word. Yeah, I dislike this price action. Like I should probably be long, and I just don't do well in these open up and go the opposite direction that the overnight session went. And when buyers are just like cutting through these imbalance levels that I would like to maybe see them reoffer here just above the mid, it's not bearish intraday price action. So I've taken a couple small stops. I think we're down mm, 40 points, like two 20-point stops. Only trading only trading single micros in this environment though, so not going to break the bank. I mean, I think buyers can smell blood in the water though, because as I've said a couple of times, the above 28,900, like there's just not very much structure from the overnight. I mean, that volume profile, granted it's relative to the volume that's been done during RTH, but I'm hovering my vertical cursor, vertical crosshair over it, and it's like there's a little tiny volume node right there at like 835. You have a couple of imbalance levels, and then it's just like flat. So if buyers have the juice, you know, they could try to get it back up to the high. They've already taken back half of it, so play Candy Crush while there's no setup. Sure. Yeah. Got rejected at the high, like almost to the tick again right there, which is also right at the edge of value. They're gonna move the point of control up here on the Nasdaq here pretty soon though. Is basically like a secondary point of control sitting here at 28,850. Not as strong on this move up from the buyers though. You can see the difference in candle coloring. Basically super super bright here as we're making new highs, and this one, meh, kinda, right? Doesn't mean that they won't just like push it through and get it back in full control, but notable. There's a break. A little bit of weakness on that potential pop through the high. It was funny when I was watching different live streams. I doubt that the person who I'm talking about, definitely doubt that they're watching my live stream. So if they happen to be, I'm not talking shit. I understand it's a lot of commentary slash like a lot of like time to talk. And uh it just made me laugh of like reviewing. I reviewed like, I don't know, 4 or 5 different streamers, and like hearing the topics that people talk about on stream is just like so funny to me. It's like, yeah, there's bits and pieces of market analysis going on, obviously, but then it was like, somebody talking about their upcoming marathon, and then, somebody else that's talking about what they're gardening. And I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to have this like long list of stuff that I talk about that isn't market related, and or become an expert Candy Crush player. Uh, so streaming world is like a whole different thing. So a little bit of weakness on that breakout. It just like didn't get very far. Got like maybe 5 or 10 points above the high. That's also the edge of value. You're starting to get a little bit of tapering on the volume there. Um, but still not a lot of pullback from there. It's just kind of a temporary, didn't get through the high. So we pushed really, obviously pushed really far, and now we're just kind of balancing, and you're getting range compression as well. This last rotation down was uh, just about 100 points, so only a quarter of the whole range up. So compressing, neutral delta, getting choppy. Um, Not a fan. Back to this imbalance level here at 830. And if anybody's watching this and is like, oh, why are we not trying to buy this? I just, I don't want to bank on like, if price is going to go higher and we're going to take back 3/4 or all of the overnight session, that is an incredible price move, by all standards. That just doesn't happen very often. And so I'm not going to put risk on banking on something that doesn't happen very often. We definitely could go higher. This is not me being, bearish, but I don't want to put risk on to bet on something that is statistically not very likely to happen. We don't tend to be down, you know, 2%, 3% at from the lows and then take back the whole overnight session. It obviously has happened before and it could happen now. But I don't, why is my DOM so deep? What is not deep to you? My DOM is showing 14 points, 15 points. And there's another imbalance level in there. I'm just getting a lot of aggression right around 28, 28,800, 2820. Um, Nice pullback off of that failed attempt to go higher, but just not moving now. Arguably, this is even harder to trade, in my opinion, than just rallying straight off the lows and go all the way through Globex. Because now you're getting violent chop in a tight range. So starting to lose some of these imbalances again. Now you're just trading through them. It's just like a big no touch situation here. I probably want to see them take out, if I'm going to look for a short trade, I want to see them get back below the point of control and probably below this imbalance level and start to hold there. But they got a ways to go. Not super interested in any longs still. If we were to come back to this level just on the other side of the point of control and we were able to hold above it, that might be, yeah, the risk to reward there would be a lot better than getting long in this area. It's also just like there's so much delta traffic going on here. There's 1, 2, 3 stacked imbalances and this delta zone from the overnight. Um, so if we're going to end up just chopping inside this range, it probably won't see me take any other trades. Um, it's just so ridiculously choppy now after like a super directional move off the bell. See me shake my head at just what is, in my opinion, just untradeable price action in this area. Notable though that on this pushback up, we haven't pushed the candle coloring over. Just means that sellers were more aggressive here, and buyers not as aggressive to be able to pivot that candle coloring back over. So a little weaker on this rally, just from a delta volume perspective. Below this imbalance again, but just can't hold below it. All right, I'm trying one more time here. 807, 20-point stop. Let's see, first target is going to be 750. See if sellers have anything in the tank, or I'm going to take a third stop. Stop's going to go to break even if we get below 75 again. This is close enough. I'm just going to come back. It's the same thing that happened last time. They just don't want to break it below this level here. Looks like my P&L code is working though. So that's a win for this morning, even if my actual P&L is not helping me. Still only giving me like 12 to 15 points. I'm put an offer down because I think if price breaks here, we could go lower pretty quickly. Just want to be prepared to have a bid out. All right, there's 75. My stop is into break even here at 805. I have a pretty sneaking suspicion that this could stop me out here. My bid is at 28,740, so just a little bit of a wick underneath this bigger, right in front of this sell imbalance. Kind of where I talked about like that if we pulled back that I might think about getting long. Right, I'm just going to move my stop to 800. I think there's a good chance that I get stopped out here. I've already been stopped out twice, so gonna play a little conservatively. And almost, yeah, and there's the stop out. So they are diligently holding below this level as they take my stop and go back down. Yeah, there's still some aggressive buyers down in this area. Super choppy up here. Made back a few handful of points there on pulling my stop in, but ultimately was looking for a little bit lower. Yeah, I mean, they got solidly through on that move. So, 40 points in the money, moving stop into profit is in this environment, to me, is prudent for my own risk controls. Obviously, not happy that they immediately rolled it back down to where it was, but such is trading the NASDAQ. I see some people in the Discord taking some really nice trades. Nice work, folks. You guys are scalping really well. I'm so annoyed that that took my stop. Such as it is, I think I'm down like what am I down? 20, about 30 points. So by my standards, just a little bit worse than break even. A couple of small stop outs, and then one that we actually got into the money decently. And this would be getting close to where my actual target was on that scalp trade. They just couldn't get it in one go. I am interested to see if they can get it back down to this 30 level. This imbalance here. 28,730. See what happens down in this area. Getting close to the end of this stream though. I'll probably stream for like 5 or 10 more minutes. Unfortunately, the first part of the stream was basically dominated by one vertical move up, and now just chopping the top of this range. and already back up above 800. So I probably would have scooted my stop into profit a little bit closer. We were looking, I think we were sitting at 739, so it would have missed me by like 4 or 5 points in terms of where my first bid was. Um, so scalpable money potentially to be made, but not anything ultra exciting. They got kind of buyers got a little bit stomped there above 800 though. It's notable. There's a sell imbalance on that particular level, for that particular move, I should say. Just getting a lot of traffic up in here. I'm actually going to cull some of these, see which ones are the strongest. So there's our strongest from RTH, these deeper orange dashed lines for imbalances. Well, I didn't get chopped to pieces today. I got a little bit chopped to pieces yesterday. Like ultimately P&L wasn't that bad. I think I was down like 50 points by the end of the session or something like that. But psychologically, I had so many trades go into profit. And I kept thinking that we were going to sell off, and we finally did in the afternoon. But by that point, I wasn't trading anymore. So I spent all my mental capital trading chop before it finally started to cleanly go down towards the end of the session yesterday. So not expending mental capital here. Um, and now they want to go to my profit target. Yeah, I would be out. I would be flat there in front of that imbalance level. Such as it is, now below that imbalance level, see if buyers can reclaim it. I think it's like, let's see here. It's probably this level. It's 29.75. Hmm. Now having a hard time getting back above that level. They might want to come back and test the opening range high. 686, like another 40 points. There's some buying above that level though. That's nice. Just not holding it ultra cleanly though. It's kind of the first place I wanted to look at for a potential long on the way back down. And didn't hold it cleanly. So I got stopped on it, but I want to point out one of the benefits of the candle coloring besides just trend is looking at the strength of each of these bounces from a delta and volume perspective. So held the bottom of this zone and candle coloring shifted right back over to blue. And we noted in here that it was a little bit on the neutral side. You didn't get back to this very like bright color. And then we sold off. And then on the next pop, you see the candle coloring not only put in a lower, we like put in a lower high from a price action perspective. And then um, we also didn't roll the candle coloring over. So just means that the selling volume here, because all of this is smoothed out with a 50 period moving average, um, just means that like on the bounce, the volume here from the sell side was much higher than it was on the bounce from the buy side on the bounce. So, if you're looking to fade something, that's in my opinion one of the things to look for, and it's one thing that I look for, which is one of the reasons that I got short in there. I just got my stop taken after we moved it into profit before it actually decided to sell. So they just held the opening range high to like almost the tick. Now they're going to come all the way back up to this sell and balance level 31. See if they can reclaim that. Price is still moving around quite a bit. I'll hang out for another 10 or 15 minutes. I don't tend to trade too much after 10 a.m., but like an hour of this was dominated by sitting in a chop zone. So see if anything exciting happens here. Let's look at a higher time frame, see where we're at. Just kind of sitting in the middle. This is like the, not quite, but I like to think of it as like a Star Wars fan. So like a little bit of Darth Maul lightsaber situation going on here with like one long wick here, one long wick here right next to each other, and sitting kind of in the middle of that. If they can't get back over this imbalance level, let's see, how far are we off the highs now? Call it 900, a couple hundred points off the high. Still above the opening range high though. I've been meaning to code it for myself, but one of the things that annoys me about Motive Waves um, OHLC study is I can't put on an opening range mid level. I can have session mid. I think I can have RTH mid, but I can't have opening range. So like the distance between the opening range high and the opening range low, which um, I usually just kind of like eyeball now, but that doesn't help you guys a lot. I'm testing this opening range high again. Buyers trying to defend their prize. About 100 points from my last short entry. Glad that I made 15 points on that stop. Not even, I think like 8 points on that stop. I got a little bit of slippage. Sellers pressing into this opening range high. The software that I'm using, my platform is MotiveWave. I'm on version 6.9.12. So if it looks different than MotiveWave 7, that's why. For the studies that are on the chart, that's ScalperIQ. It looks at delta, aggression, and order flow, and puts different figures and coloring on the chart based on order flow signals. If I was still short here, I would definitely be trying to take some profits at the opening range high. They've held it multiple times now. Now you're getting a push up off of that level. I don't see a lot from, you're basically kind of holding this, right? This is the opening range high where they popped it off the open. And that's what they're holding right now, or attempting to hold. But I don't see a lot from like a volume or delta perspective. It's trying to lose the opening range high now, which is not productive for buyers. We'll be streaming. We're going to try to keep consistent streaming going on for Wednesdays and Fridays. TBD, if you guys like watching the stream and want to see Mondays as well, that would be something that we would be open to looking at. Our Discord for Scalper IQ is free to join. Um, if you want to take a stab, if you're not using Scalper IQ already, we have free trials available. But our Discord is free to join, even if you're not using Scalper IQ. You can still come hang out, ask questions, say hi. Coming back up to this imbalance level here at 730-ish. And we'll see, do buyers get back above it, or are we just going to reoffer and go back to the opening range high? Wow, I'm going to say the first time was reoffered. They're going to get back above it. Nice hold off the opening range high. I didn't really see anything there from like a volume or delta perspective that had me super interested, but it's obviously a line in the sand for buyers. And they held it almost to the tick. So they pushed above this level. Let's see if they can come down and hold it on a retest. There it is right there. Nope. Just a not a very clean hold and a push back below it. You notice with the candle coloring still hasn't rolled over, so Sellers still sellers still controlling the aggression and the volume on this pullback. Already back to the opening range high. I was going to potentially take a short there, but they popped it almost 15 or 20 points above, and when they got it back below, there really wasn't an opportunity unless I was sitting there with a sell stop. Back up to this level again, held above the opening range high. One of the reasons I'm semi-interested in a short here, if we can hold this level, is that the volume profile is like, there's not really much distinct support down here until we get out to the outside of value where this imbalance level from the overnight is. But the opening range high is like a psychological level right now. I'm going to test the opening range high again, just kind of ping-ponging between this and this imbalance level. Right now, I just don't see like a ton from like a, like volume perspective here in terms of like, holding the opening range high, but the 30-minute opening range is quite popular. Um, so it's not surprising that they are trying to hold that level. I want to see if they give me one more look at this 730 level. Potentially short. Just because buyers haven't been able to get control of this. Still firmly in that sell side from volume and delta perspective. And this is one of the issues for buyers, or really any side that pushes, in one direction or another, is that, there's just not a lot of structure in this up move. It's basically just sort of like one vertical up move. So finding where this wants to hold on a pullback is tricky, and I think that's what the market is trying to navigate at the moment. Is, you know, opening range high is sort of a line in the sand. There's not a lot else in terms of structure from here until you get down to maybe the edge of value. Doing a lot of volume here, not going anywhere. Buyers are stepping in and absorbing some of this. Opening range high is 686 on NQ. So you're getting like supportive buying, but not so much initiation. No more buyers stepping in right there. All right, let me look at this 730 level that they're going to get back close to again. I'm kind of looking for two potential trades depending on what the reactions are. If we can get up and stay below this 730 level, potentially looking to fade. Or if we get like a nice little quick sweep of the opening range high and then rebid it, that might be nice for a long. My stop would just go into profit as soon as we got back above this imbalance level. All right, so that's back above that imbalance level. Starting to actually shift some candle coloring over, so that's going to negate any type of short activity I was going to look at there. Hmm. Tricky, tricky, tricky. Can they hold above this level now? There's a big buyer sitting right there at 24 and just got filled. So that's failing again above that imbalance level. Yeah, these are the things about on these like days where the volatility is so much higher is like we're holding that level. It's just not clean. Now they're going to go look like they might sweep the low below the opening range high. Could have scalped this in both directions like twice. Buyers just not giving up down there around 28,700. tight stop on this. 745. Risking 15 points here. See if we can sell off of this imbalance level. Break this level they keep testing down here. 685. Already nice 15 points off of that. See if it holds. Oh, that's not going to help me with that buyer right there. Filled him. Volatile. Got real close to my stop there. If we get below the opening range high, that's a nice little quick delta pivot. I'm just going to scalp this here. If we can flush this. Oh, didn't mean to do that. I'm bidding 87. And we're filled. It might go lower. That got me green. Nice little 40-point scalp there to end that stream for today. So what a sort of interesting session so far. Be interesting to see how this plays out for the rest of the day. Sellers finally, pretty much just took it in the face right around starting around like 8:45 Central Time, and just sort of a relentless rally back up. And finally stepped in. You started to see some selling above 28,850. And now you've pulled back and sitting back on the opening range high. Still a place that that was the reason I didn't want to hold this, is I thought they might sweep this and then rebid it, which is exactly what they just are trying to do right now. But I already took my money, so yeah. So okay session. I think I made 10 points. So had two small losers up here. Actually had it was actually a couple small losers, and then I guess one small winner up here. And then one winner here, shorting off of this imbalance level that they kept holding here, just from here to the opening range high. So, if we look at the risk to reward on a trade like that, I was short at I think 730, and we took off at the opening range high, which is 685. So it's like 45 points. And I was risking 20 points, so just a little bit better than 2-to-1 risk to reward there. But I typically like higher risk to reward. It was like 2 already holds of that imbalance level, so decided to take it one more time. So I think that's it for today. Thank you all for joining. We'll be back again live on Wednesday, and this recording will be up on YouTube, hopefully this time with audio. So come and join our Discord if you have any questions. You guys enjoy the weekend.